I'm in love with the hot guy at my gym, but he hates my touch. My life wasn't the same anymore, not since I met someone, and he was the reason for my sunny smile. I hummed along to the song playing through my headphones as I walked over to the gym. The gym was only 2 blocks away from my apartment, so I enjoyed the short walk to the gym every morning. As I entered the gym, my heart began to beat faster with anticipation. I was excited to see my crush, Malcolm. He joined the gym about 2 months ago, and I had been smitten with him since the day he arrived. Well, so were about 60% of the gym members. Ever since Malcolm came to the gym, the female members of the gym have become more consistent with their workouts, and I did not need a fortune reader to tell me the reason. Clearly, it was because of the hotness that was Malcolm. "Good morning, Gerald." John, the owner of the gym, also a fitness instructor, greeted me as I entered. "Good morning." I waved at him. I walked into the locker room and dropped my bag in the locker. Quickly, I changed from the gray sweatpants I'd worn to a more flattering short that showed off my legs and a little bit of my thighs. 2 months ago, I would not have bothered changing my attire as I preferred to dress comfortably and sincerely. I did not give much attention to the way I appeared in the gym. However, since Malcolm came, that changed. I don't know if he even noticed me, but just in case he does, I have to look good. Last week, I was by the fridge, about to get water, when I caught Malcolm looking at me. At first, I thought he was looking at someone else, but I was the only one there. Also, he looked at me one more time, and I locked eyes with him for a brief moment. Later that day, when I was entering the locker room, our arms brushed on the way out. He walked a few steps ahead, then he turned around to look at me. Neither of us said a word, continued staring at each other for a few seconds. Then he suddenly turned and walked out. I remembered every detail of that moment. It was one of the best moments of my life. After that day, I caught him staring at me a few times, but I did not approach him. Still, it was nice to think that he was attracted to me. Like every other morning, I start my routine off with a set of stretches. Then I move to the treadmill. I was on the treadmill when my nose caught the scent of something familiar. In an instant, my heartbeat multiplied, knowing he was around. I threw a glance around the gym, searching for him. My eyes finally caught sight of him. He was doing push-ups close to the yoga mats. I watched him for a few seconds, then I looked for a free space to do lunges. It was leg day, and I had to do some of the exercises I disliked the most. 30 minutes later, I was cooling off on the exercise bike when I noticed Malcolm about a foot away from me. He was setting up weight for the bench. I noticed his shirt was gone and his muscular chest was now on view. My eyes roamed over his 6'4" figure, taking note of his brown short curls, which were now disheveled. I watched him for a while, wondering if I should walk up to him. "Do you need help? I could spot you." I spoke casually, though my mind was running at 50 miles per hour. He turned to look at me and gave me a smile. "I don't mind if you're not busy." "I'm currently taking a break," I told him. He nodded his head in response and laid down on the bench, planting his feet firmly on either sides of the bench. I moved to the place behind the weight bar. Standing this close, staring down at him, I was able to appreciate his hazel brown eyes. Every time he pushed the weight up, a small crease appeared between his eyebrows and his eyes closed for a few seconds. And each time his eyes opened, it was like his eyes were searching for mine. A groan brought me back to reality as I realized the bar had fallen onto Malcolm's chest. I quickly lifted it and placed it on the support rail. "Shit," I muttered under my breath. "This was my fault. I offered to spot him and I let him get hurt because I was not giving him my full attention. Instead of focusing on assisting him, I was imagining a love story in my head. My first time of speaking with him and he ends up getting hurt. I would not be shocked if he decided to avoid me after this." Malcolm was now sitting on the bench, his head bent downwards. I was not sure of what to say or how to help him. I squatted down in front of him. "Are you okay?" He lifted up his head to look at me, and then he nodded. "Yeah, I'm good." He coughed after speaking and groaned in pain. "Does it hurt a lot?" I asked him. "No, I'm good. It was on my chest for just a few seconds." "I'm sorry about that. I will go get you something from the first aid." Just as I was about to stand up, his hand came down on my arm, stopping me from moving. "That's not necessary. I really am fine," he reassured me. Though I did not believe him, it was hard for me to focus on anything but his hand on my arm. My eyes moved from down his arm to his chest. There was a red line on his chest from where the bar had fallen, but it was already fading. It was not obvious unless you were standing close to him. It was then I noticed how close we were. For 2 months I had dreamed about him, but I had never gotten within such close distance to him. It was thrilling being able to see the movement of his Adam's apple up close when he gulped, the sweat bead moving down his eyebrow, his chiseled cheekbone, and down his jawline. He removed his hand with a jerk, like he had just remembered his hand was still on my arm. I looked up at him and our eyes locked in a gaze. A small voice in my head was telling me to look away, but I couldn't. He was looking at me like he was seeing me for the first time. It was as though a magnetic force was pulling us towards each other. I leaned towards him and he leaned in as well. My eye fell to his lips, and the next moment I planted a soft kiss on his lips. I pulled back to look at him, and I watched his face change. His brows furrowed and his lips parted as he projectile vomited all over my chest. The next couple of seconds, I was frozen in shock. As reality hit me in the gut, I stood up and walked to the bathroom. In a hurry, I washed my face and changed my clothes. I could not think about anything. My only focus was getting out of the gym. I took my bag and walked out. It wasn't until I was walking on the sidewalk that I felt it. The overwhelming burden of humiliation. I wished everywhere would go dark and I would not have to see anybody. When I arrived at my apartment, I flung my bag on the floor and went to the bathroom. In the shower, I went over everything that happened. I combed through every detail, trying to see where it went wrong. Obviously it was the kiss, but I could not understand it. I had caught him staring at me a few times over the last couple weeks, not to mention the way he looked at me just before I kissed him. Did I read the signs wrong? Was he disgusted by me? The look on his face before he vomited was something similar to disgust. No, this was my fault. I should have asked for his permission before I made a move to kiss him. Who knows, maybe he wasn't interested in men. Or maybe he just wasn't interested in me. I punched the wall as realization dawned on me. Everyone in the gym must have seen what happened. Later that afternoon, I left work early so I could go to the gym. It was the least populated in the afternoon, and the crowd I exercised with were rarely there in the afternoon. Still, I wore a huge hoodie to avoid being recognized by anyone. The last thing I wanted was an awkward conversation. Most especially, I did not want to have a chance encounter with Malcolm. So I chose a time that I knew he would not be around. His usual schedule was mornings and nights. Thankfully, I made it to the locker room with no interruptions. I opened my locker and packed my belongings. There was no way I could come back after that embarrassing incident. 1 week later. It had been exactly a week since the incident, and life had gone back to normal. Normal except for my workout routine. I had been exercising at home as I was yet to sign up for another gym. It was proving a bit difficult to find a suitable gym within walking distance of my apartment, but I wasn't discouraged. The warm Tuesday morning sun shone on my path as I made my way to work, a few minutes away from the office building. When I rounded the corner, I saw Malcolm. I was beyond shocked to see him there. Why was he here? Was he following me? I turned around and quickened my pace, trying to escape before he noticed me. He was following me, I could feel it. So I started running. I threw a glance backward to check if he was still following me. He was right behind me. "Just hear me out, Gerald," he shouted, grabbing a tight hold of my arm. The force of his grip pulled me down as I turned around for the second time. I slipped and fell down, pulling him down with me. For a moment, we both stared at each other in silence after rolling over on the floor. We both awkwardly laughed. He stood up, then stretched his hand toward me. I grabbed it and he pulled me up. To avoid my clothes getting ruined, I dusted off my pants with a handkerchief. Trying to act mature, I decided to speak to him. "Sorry about running. I was nervous." "Understandable. I did chase you around like a creep." He chuckled. I was mesmerized by the sound, and even more the expression on his face. In the span of 2 minutes, I had seen him laugh and chuckle. It was more than I had seen him do during our time in the gym. Admittedly, I was not close to him, but I did watch him a lot. Based on his interactions with people, I could tell he was a loner, but he had his charms. "I don't know how you found me, and I understand if you're angry. I'm sorry for the kiss. Clearly I misread the signs. I should not have kissed you without permission." I started with the easiest thing. Malcolm's face fell, however. "You don't have to apologize for that." "Oh, but I do. Given the amount of discomfort I caused you, it is only proper that I apologize." Malcolm groaned, placing his palm on his forehead. "No, you did not cause me any discomfort. The vomit was because of something I ate earlier this morning before coming to the gym. Well, that coupled with the pressure of the bar against my chest, and something else that I really don't want to talk about right now." "Okay." I did not believe him. He was most probably saying that to be polite. "I know you don't believe me, but I am saying the truth." He looked into my eyes. "I think you're a really cool dude, and I wanted to clear things up. You don't have to quit the gym because you're trying to avoid me." I blushed at the blunt honesty. "It is not just you I'm trying to avoid. It will be too embarrassing." "That shouldn't matter if you like the gym." I smiled despite myself. "I do, but I would rather go to another gym. Thanks for the offer, though." Strangely, now he looked nervous. "Okay, this might sound weird, but I want to keep in touch with you, so if you don't mind, I would like to get your contact." It was weird, given the circumstances, but I was more than happy to give him my contact. A few months later. When I gave Malcolm my phone number a couple of months ago, I never expected him to actually contact me, but he did. Oftentimes we went out for drinks or dinner and enjoyed each other's company. We spoke frequently about different things and I got to know him more. I later found a suitable gym close to my office. I signed up to the gym, and a week later, Malcolm signed up too. The gesture of him following me to a new gym set butterflies free in my belly. The only problem was that we were just friends, and I wanted more. My little crush had developed into full-blown love. The more time I spent with him, the more I fell in love. The way he acted so overprotective of me, I got the feeling that he cared for me beyond friendship. We had some charged moments, but he never made a move. Sometimes it felt like we were on the same page, and other times, it all felt one-sided. To avoid misreading signals, I decided to wait for him to make the first move. I just had to be patient, right? Too bad my best friend, Honey, didn't share my sentiment. Today we were in our shared office, and I was telling her about the dinner I had with Malcolm yesterday, and she flared up. I don't understand why you keep doing this. If he's not going to make a move, leave him. Stop going on dates with him, she said. She sounded too harsh, and I couldn't help but wince a little at her tone. It was a dinner between friends, not a date. The weekend retreat to his cabin? She fired, lips pursed in disdain. Just a retreat, I whispered sheepishly. She rubbed her palms over her face in frustration. What about the flowers? I let out a dreamy sigh, remembering the bouquets of roses that Malcolm sent to my office every Monday. It had me walking on sunshine all week. Honey pointed her index finger at my nose. My point exactly. Whatever this is, stop it. You're going to end up hurt. I know you. I can't stop being friends with him because I have feelings for him. That would be unfair to him. I was frustrated as well, if that wasn't clear from my tone. Over the months, only I knew how much I liked being with Malcolm and how much I desired him. No one else really needed to point the most obvious to me. But Honey wasn't done. Actually, you can. You have to start thinking about yourself. Who's going to look out for your feelings? She asked. I shook my head. I get your point, but I can't do that. Honey sighed and shook her head. Then a few seconds later, a bright smile appeared on her face. Already I knew she had come up with a brilliant idea. How about you start dating again? Why would I do that when I am in love with Malcolm? What better way to get over him? Besides, you can make him jealous as well. The part about making him jealous caught my attention. Oh, okay, I think I'll try it. Honey smiled as she typed away on her keyboard, very pleased with herself. 2 days later. Before I agreed to the blind date, I decided to give it one last shot with Malcolm. We were at his condo, watching a movie after dinner. Hey, you. Hey, he chuckled, licking my nose as we cuddled. I want to ask you a hypothetical question. I placed a heavy emphasis on hypothetical. I'm asking for a friend. So imagine you're really close friends with someone. Would you date them? His hand stilled and I felt his body stiffen next to me. I need to use the bathroom. He got up immediately and disappeared into the bathroom for the next 15 minutes. When he came back, he was acting weird, so I knew he was uncomfortable. I decided not to go ahead with telling him my feelings. Instead, I told him I was going on a date the next day, and he seemed very okay with it. That hurt. On Friday night, I followed Honey's advice and went on a date. It was a blind date she set up for me. She assured me that he was a nice guy, and she encouraged me to give him a chance. When I got to the restaurant, he was already there. We ordered food, and while we were waiting for the food, we started speaking. My date, Brian, was a lawyer, a very fun and effortlessly charming individual. Even though I was not attracted to him, he kept my mind off of Malcolm. The devil who wouldn't stop calling my phone. Brian was also respectful and polite, despite the constant buzzing of my phone. When my phone rang thrice, he simply asked me if I wanted to excuse myself to pick up the call. I told him no and placed the phone on silent. He did not bring up the calls again, even though it kept on vibrating. 10 minutes into my date, Malcolm barged in. I knew it was him before he spoke. I could always discern his scent. Based on the number of times he had called my phone, I assumed he was bothered, but I never imagined that he would do this. Let's go, Malcolm spoke in a clipped voice, totally ignoring Brian. No, as you can see, I am on a date. I gave Brian a polite smile. Sorry about him. I have to talk with you. I gave Malcolm a stare. We can talk later. No, we have to talk now. We can either talk here in front of him, he threw a glance at Brian, or you can end this date and we talk in private, Malcolm said with a serious tone. Looking at him, I noticed his clenched jaw. He was obviously pissed and really determined to have a conversation with me. I sighed and turned to look at Brian. The poor guy seemed so confused by the situation. Excuse me for a moment, I need to talk to my friend. I gave him a smile, hoping it seemed apologetic. It's okay, Brian replied with a forced smile. I stood up and followed Malcolm out of the restaurant. We walked down a few feet away from the valet station. Then I turned around to give him a questioning look. We should go, Malcolm said, his voice sounding calmer than before. Excuse me? That's all you're going to say after the act you just pulled? I asked him. He kept quiet for a couple minutes. Then he spoke. "Why were you out with him?" "I told you beforehand that I was going on a date." "Yeah, but you don't know him." He spoke with agitation in his voice. "That is the purpose of a date," I replied. We were both skirting around the real issue, neither of us wanting to acknowledge it. "Do you have a problem with me going on dates?" "Yes," he exclaimed, obviously frustrated and on edge. I hated to admit it, but I felt a twisted pleasure knowing I was the cause of it. He massaged the spot between his brows before continuing. "I want to be the only one you complain to about your day. The one you watch action movies with, the one you laugh with, and the one you cry with. I love you, Gerald Finch, and I want to be with you." For a moment, I was dumbfounded. I thought he was going to give me a flimsy excuse, not to confess his feelings to me. I had been waiting for this moment for a while, and now that it was happening, I was happy but also a little bit skeptic. "Okay, kiss me," I said. He was shocked. "What?" "You said you want to be with me, so prove it. Kiss me." I maintained my stand. If he really meant what he said, kissing me should not be an issue. Malcolm froze on his spot. He did not make any move. He watched me with longing in his eyes, but he did not do anything. Annoyed, I rolled my eyes. "This may seem like a game to you, but never try it again. Don't play with my feelings," I said and walked away. 1 week later. Since the incident after my ruined date, I had been avoiding Malcolm. I stopped picking up his calls and going to the gym. So he started turning up at my apartment. Due to that, I had to spend a few nights at Honey's place. Today, my boss at work told me about an investor willing to invest in our startup. As the head of my team, I was picked to represent the company. It was a huge opportunity for the company and for me. I knew I could not mess it up. I was surprised when I got to the venue of the meeting. It was an office not too far from my former gym. The secretary was a friendly middle-aged woman, and she directed me to the main office. I opened the door, and immediately I was hit with a familiar scent. It smelled like Malcolm's perfume. True to my guess, Malcolm was seated right in the middle of the coffee shop. "What is Malcolm doing here?" I was about to question him when he walked up to me, and after a curious look at me, kissed me. Once again, he managed to shock me. "What was that for?" I asked him. "Proof that I want to be with you." "What are you doing? Are you trying to trick me?" No, I'm not." He ushered me towards a sofa in his office. "I intend on investing in your company regardless of what happens. I have some money saved up, and I have been looking for a venture to invest in. When I found out about your company, I figured it was the perfect opportunity. I needed to see you." I knew he was rich, but I did not know he was that rich. He told me he was working as a stockbroker, so I wasn't that surprised. "Okay, so what do you want?" I asked him. I just want to talk. I realize I should have been more open with you, and I am willing to do so now." He stood up and walked towards a cabinet in the corner of his office. Then he brought 2 glasses and a bottle of whiskey. He poured out a little into both glasses and offered me one. "It's 11 a.m. I refused the whiskey, and he placed it on the table. He sat down on the sofa opposite me. "I am aware of the time, but I need this if I am going to tell you my story." He took a sip after he spoke. "Okay." He rubbed his temple with the fingertips of his left hand, then he bent his head. It seemed like he was having trouble, and he was yet to say something. I waited patiently, watching him. After a couple of minutes, he took a gulp of his drink. Then he began to speak. "I guess you can say it began when my parents died. They died in a car accident when I was 13 years old. I was taken in by one of my dad's cousins. She was nice to me, but her husband, Malcolm loosened his tie and unbuttoned the first button of his shirt. He blew air through his mouth. Then he continued. "Her husband made inappropriate advances to me. I always tried my best to avoid him, but there was nowhere else to sleep at night." He grabbed the bottle from the table and filled his glass. It was obvious how uncomfortable he was, but I did not want to interrupt him. He took a huge gulp of the drink and closed his eyes. "It started with little touches, and over time it progressed to full-on threats if I didn't allow him to go further. He threatened me, and I was so scared. I did not tell his wife. I didn't have a chance against him. I lost hope, and I accepted it as my fate. His wife noticed that I had become withdrawn and depressed. She tried to help me, but I was too scared to tell her the truth." He sighed and took another sip. "She thought I was depressed because of my parents' death, so she paid more attention to me. I noticed that the more she paid attention to me, the less attention her husband paid to me. So I did my best to stick to her. I had 2 months of relative peace." A chuckle escaped his lips. "Oh my God, Malcolm." I sobbed, unable to hold back my tears. Eventually, a social worker came to check up on me. I told her I no longer wanted to stay in my aunt's house. She tried to get me to reveal the reason, but I remained quiet. My aunt's husband came in to threaten me, but she overheard our conversation. Anger bubbled up inside me, and I picked up the glass of whiskey. To quench my emotions, I downed it all in one swig. Please tell me she helped you. She did. Later that evening, she got him arrested. She spoke to me about what had happened and reassured me that I was safe. With some persuasion, she got me to testify against him in court. We won the case and things changed afterwards. My aunt moved us to another state, and we started anew there. I was dumbfounded. What could I say? Never would I have imagined something like that could happen. I knew there was a reason behind his aversion to physical intimacy, but I did not think it could be something like this. It was such a heartbreaking story. Thinking about a young Malcolm being abused made me angry and sad. I am sorry that happened to you. I am okay. That was years ago. He stood up and rounded the table to sit down next to me. I'm sorry how I acted towards you. I was jealous when I saw you with him. It's okay. I like that you were jealous. We both laughed. Then he leaned in to kiss me, and we shared a gentle kiss. I angled my body to face him, and I placed my hand on his chest. Immediately, my hand touched him. He froze. I pulled away from him and observed his face. His expression was blank, but the tremors in his right hand told me something was wrong. Oh, I'm sorry. It's okay. I understand. For the first time, I really understood him. Despite his claims that he was okay, he was not. There were still some lingering effects of his past trauma. If he could not bear to be touched by someone he loved, then there was still something wrong. Have you been to a therapist since it happened? No, but that is because I don't need one. I'm fine. I just get stuck in my head sometimes. I think you need to see a therapist. It will help you deal with what happened. I don't need a therapist. I've processed what happened a long time ago and I'm over it. I don't have to sit down in front of a stranger and talk about something that happened to me a decade ago. He was clearly agitated. It still bothered him to talk about it. And that was another reason I was sure he needed a therapist. Still, I decided to let it go for now. A few weeks later. After that conversation in his office, we officially became a couple. We went on dates and I was happy that we were finally together. A few conversations with him and I was able to convince him to go to therapy. It took a while, but he made some progress. It's been a few weeks since he started therapy and our relationship has blossomed since then. Whenever we kissed, he was responsive, and whenever he felt uncomfortable, he would tell me, and I'd give him his space. We still hadn't been intimate just yet, but I was content with the progress we were making. I was happy knowing he was not scared to be vulnerable with me. One night, when he picked me up after work, he kissed me and hugged me. I was pleasantly surprised, as he had never done anything like that before. I wanted to talk to him about it, but I decided not to draw attention to it. It seemed like he did it subconsciously. I was merely happy with the ease and familiarity with which he did it. It was proof that he was getting better. This weekend, we decided to go rock climbing indoors. There was a gym near our apartment, so we went there. We put on our safety gear and started climbing. It was an activity I did often. I found it thrilling. We were climbing a 15-foot wall. We were almost at the top when I slipped. My lips parted in a shrill scream that cut off into a grunt as the ropes jerked me upright. "Pooch!" Malcolm yelled as I went still. Since our ropes were connected, the ropes began to tug on Malcolm's torso. Unable to comprehend the thought that I was causing him pain, I immediately unlatched my belt and dropped to the floor. Thankfully, the floor was cushioned, but I still ended up twisting my arm as I landed awkwardly on my elbow. A few seconds later, Malcolm came down after me. "Are you okay?" I asked him, concerned that the rope could have hurt his abdomen. "Yes, I am." He gave me a wide smile. "How are you, though?" "I'm okay, just a little bruise," I said, dismissing the pain in my arm. I received first aid at the center, but Malcolm insisted on taking me to the hospital. I was given some painkillers and we went home. That night, in my apartment, he cooked for me and we ate together. We were watching a movie when suddenly he kissed me. I kissed him back and he kept on going. Surprised, I pulled away from him and looked at him. "Stop, you don't have to do this," I told him. "I know. I honestly can't explain why I was so scared. It was hard to hold myself back each time, but my brain just wouldn't listen to me." Looking into my eyes, he gave me a sweet smile. "But today, when you chose to get hurt instead of seeing me in pain, it broke down the wall that was holding me back." "What? I didn't get hurt that badly. You're making me sound like a saint." In response, he poked my arm. Just a slight touch was enough to make me howl in pain. He chuckled and placed a gentle kiss on the spot, making his way up my shoulder to my neck. A blaze of heat followed the imprint of his lips on my skin. He trailed kisses up my jaw, to my cheeks, and finally my lips. "I want to make love to you. I've always wanted to, but I'm ready now, he whispered between kisses. Also, stopping me tonight would totally send me to the hospital for all the wrong reasons. I was amazed by his statement, but my head was dogged with desire. We finally made love that night, fully expressing our desire and love for each other. I was happy that he trusted me with his body. It was something I had been silently hoping for. Conclusion. After that night, we became closer, and our relationship felt stronger every day. Malcolm continued his therapy, and it helped him heal. He was no longer scared to share his vulnerability with me. I was happy, and I felt secure in our relationship. With every day that passed, I became more certain that he was the one. Honey accepted our relationship, and she supported us. We spent more time together as a group, and Malcolm grew on her. The end. Can you date someone who is averse to human touch? Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force, and stay wholesome.